You have entered the black hole of real estate. Welcome to episode number 7. Once you enter the black hole, you'll find it very hard to get out, and we're quite sure that you probably won't want to get out, especially with today, episode number 7. Well, let's just tell you this. I am frequently asked about the market and when things are going to return to normal. And by the way, this is the normal, so you're here. This is Ron Wojciechowski, and I'm the broker over at Wise Home Team Realty. And today we're going to talk about today's market and why it's going to continue to be like this. Home sales are up, condos are actually down. Are virtual showings just a fad? And when will the prices drop? So, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that this is not the new normal, it's just the normal. And we are not going to go back to what was going on before COVID entered our life. We're going to evolve into something that will largely be different. So, the past is definitely the past. And what will it look like? Well, my suspicions are this. I think that the market in many areas are just starting to open up, at least in Florida. But across the country, other places are still on a pretty tight lockdown. So I don't know that there's going to be anything close to evolving in those areas soon. So the adjustments will be different nationwide, and it's going to change the strata in the playing field. So I believe that warm weather areas such as Florida and Arizona will see more activity than areas that are not evolving out of this as quickly. As far as what's going to be normal, I believe that we'll still see that seesaw of low inventory, which is prevalent across the country, continuing to be that. There is some bent up buyer demand, and I believe they're absorbing that inventory quickly. And as sellers become more comfortable with introducing people into their homes again for the first time in a couple of months comfortably, we'll see some new inventory coming out, but I believe it will continue to be consumed at a rapid rate. So we'll see the seesaw of available homes, not so many homes, available homes, not so many homes. And I think it's going to continue that way. I'm very confident about that. Right now, single family home sales generally across the board, they're up this year. And I believe there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, a single family home is more of a primary residence. And families typically move this time of year for a number of reasons. And let's face it, May, June, and July are heightened activity times for any number of reasons. Families definitely are moving to move to the next school district, or perhaps they're empty nesters right now and they don't need the big house and they want to downsize. So there's always that activity. Even though the tax deadline was extended from April 15th to July 15th, a lot of people did file, and tax advisors are going to make recommendations to either sell off some property or perhaps buy some property as part of their overall tax strategy. So those things enter the equation. Boomers escaping the north, coming to Florida, for the weather, the distancing perhaps, that's other things that are going to increase the activity over the next few months. And when you look at a primary residence, that's more of a necessity for most people versus a vacation property, which might be a nicety. And that's probably a big part of the reason why condo sales dropped off a cliff. They were dramatically down in the month of April. We expect that to continue for a while. A couple of reasons why. See, a condo in many cases is a second home. It's an investment property, a rental property, or maybe a hybrid of the two. I'm not aware of a lot of people that want the burden of a second residence right now when travel is difficult at best and you're not going to spend a lot of time there. It's a pretty sizable investment in a home that you may not visit in the rest of 2020. So I believe that that second home piece is largely out of the market for the foreseeable future. And as an investment property, short-term rentals have been kind of cut at the knees, so to speak, because of a lot of the social distancing laws requiring that we're not able to do the short-term rentals along with the travel restrictions. It's been very, very hard. So I believe that, who's vacationing right now? Well, that's a big part of the Airbnb crowd and some of the short-term rentals, less than 30 days, let's call it. That has also been sucked out of the market. So when you remove that second home vacation property from the mix or the income property through short-term rentals, there's a black hole there. It's gone. So the only thing left in the condo is if you're going to purchase a condo as a primary residence, which is a small subset, or if you're purchasing it as a long-term rental, then you still need to make sure that you can get a good enough price on it for the long-term rental to cover your costs of your taxes, your association fees, as well as the cost of your money. And a lot of condos, what you'll find is that it's probably a break-even proposition at best, and you have to hope that your investment pays off in the long run with appreciation. And who knows if the market is going up or down, especially in condos right now. So if you're betting to break even, the market goes up, that's also a reason for people to be cautious. So I can tell you this, typically, if you look at 2019 stats, what you'll find from March to April, there was a dramatic increase in the number of condos that were purchased. And when you look at March of this year compared to last year, those numbers are about the same. The huge difference is that it went in the other direction. There was a dramatic drop off in April of this year where we would have anticipated a big spike in the sales. So condos are definitely an area of opportunity in this market. So if you're thinking about what's normal is single family homes are almost behaving as if COVID never happened. And condos are behaving like COVID's never going to stop. So that remains news and something worth looking at if you're looking to buy in either area. Let's talk about those virtual showings. It was cute and that was fun, and people were like, "Hey, I'm going to show you a property, and let's do a FaceTime and let's do it live." And people bought from that, but people have historically bought from that. That's nothing new. That technology's been around for years. It just got used a lot more last month. I think if you polled your friends, and let's say for the moment you've got 100 friends, how many of those 100 people would buy a property, 250, $300,000, even $100,000, sight unseen? I think most of your friends could probably narrow it down to their top three or four choices, just like they do on the TV shows. But I think once they get there, they're going to want to see, feel, touch, and experience those condos. Check out the views in person. Make sure it wasn't a crazy camera angle or somebody holding their, you know, camera around a corner to make the view look better. I think most people, when it comes to that kind of money, are still going to want to see the last few choices in person. So, what's normal? I think video and technology and all the different ways that we can share pictures. I think that's absolutely something that's already been there, is going to continue to be there. But I think that the normalcy is going to be to continue to narrow those down. I think the vast majority of the people are still going to want to see those places when they're spending that kind of money in person. So I don't want to say that virtual showings are a fad. I think they're a larger piece of the puzzle to strategically make it easier and a shorter experience to make the purchase. And so what does that mean? Well, as opposed to traveling and spending a week in a hotel room, perhaps you're narrowing it down to the two or three properties that you really, really like that you've investigated. And maybe you pop in for the day and you spend one night in a hotel and then you go back home. I think that's going to happen more. Or maybe you spend no nights in a hotel. Maybe you're within driving distance and you're driving, 6 hours one way. You look for a few hours and then you drive back home, share the driving experience. I know it sounds crazy, but for some people, staying in a hotel right now sounds crazy. So, fad? Not necessarily. Is it the solution? I don't think so. I think that face to face is important. I think it matters to be able to see the property and know who that you're working with. So I don't think realtors are going to be replaced over this, and I don't think people are going to largely purchase things based on just what the realtors are saying to them or showing them. So I believe your new normal is just that. More research up front using more technology, but still seeing the property when it's time to actually pull the trigger and make the purchase on that. And then the last thing, I am asked all the time, when are prices dropping? Well, it's an excellent question. I don't know that they're going to drop. And we could talk about less sales in the condos. I don't know if prices jumped off a cliff. I think number of properties sold jumped off the cliff. It went down. But a lot of condo owners that have second homes, for instance, in income properties, they likely have enough wealth that they might be out the fees. Maybe it's a few thousand or even 5 or 10,000 a year. Their wealth typically can support that as opposed to dropping 50 or 100,000 in price. See, that's a difference in this market. 12 years ago in '08, nobody had any equity. 70% of the market was foreclosures. Right now, foreclosures are far less than 5%, and equity is dramatically different than it was back then. So most people can afford to hold those properties. I know, personally speaking, if I was to ask you, would you like to sell this year for a $50,000 discount, or would you rather be out of pocket 5 grand this year until maybe the market is different next year and we can, get a better sales price for you? I think most people would figure out a way to pay the fees for a year and leave it empty if they had to, rather than take 50 grand less right now. And I believe that's what's going to support the prices more than anything is people's ability to carry that property. So that will be different. What might cause prices to drop? Well, the mortgage forbearance picture. About 10% of properties in Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac are in forbearance right now. So we'll be watching that piece come November, December, January. Will those people be able to make 6 or 7 payments all at one shot? Will there be some sort of workout for them to keep them out the foreclosure market? I'm not sure. But if there was a subset of the market that was going to head towards foreclosure, it's likely those loans for first-time home buyers or people with maybe 5% down or less, they're in jeopardy of not being able to sell the property without bringing a check to the table. So in that case, if they can't make up the forbearance and there's not a workout program available, it's likely to be a short sale if they want to endure a short sale, or it could just be a foreclosure, throw the keys on the counter, or maybe at this point, the banks, if it's that close, they may just do a cash for keys and have them, sign it back over. A deed in lieu of foreclosure was popular 15 years ago before the market really, really crashed. And the bank just might take the keys back and say, look, you know what, no harm, no foul, give us the keys back. We're going to mark your credit for a few years, but we're not going to charge you either because we're not going to pay all the legal fees. So deed in lieu of foreclosure, well, that might be a thing. Just keep in mind that if you're searching online and you're looking at for a foreclosure, should you see a popular website that says Liz Pendants, which means it's somewhere in the process of a foreclosure, or some notifications about it, or pre-foreclosure or foreclosure, those aren't actually available for sale unless you can see them, with some sort of advertising that says for sale. Those are just clues of properties that might actually come on the market as a foreclosure at some point. But even if it went back to the bank, it could be many, many months or even a year before it made it back to the market. So gaming the system and searching for list pendants and pre-foreclosure, it's kind of the long way to get a deal, and it may take a while to get there. With interest rates as low as they are right now, you may find a highly motivated seller who be willing to sell for a little bit less than would have sold for, let's say in January or February. You might actually get a better deal and a better interest rate locked in, what, in the threes right now, by just searching the market for somebody that's a seller that happens to be motivated right now. So, what is normal? Well, what we're going through right now, this is the normal. And I don't know that what we had 3 months ago is likely to come back. I don't think it will be, not in that form. So stop asking, when's it going back to normal? This is the normal. This is Ron Wojciechowski with the Black Hole of Real Estate. Look forward to seeing you next week.